You've heard of Q-learning. But what is it really? And what does this bizarre phrase, temporal difference learning, even mean? By the end of this video, it's going to feel dumb simple. In our last video, our Monte Carlo agent was incredibly patient. It had to finish the entire race before it could learn a single thing. Think about it like this. You're cooking dinner, and the recipe says 30 minutes. 10 minutes in, you realize you forgot to preheat the oven. Do you have to wait until dinner is served to know you'll be eating late? Of course not. You update your estimate immediately. The cold oven tells you everything. You don't need to wait for the final result. This is the entire secret behind temporal difference learning. It's about being an impatient learner. It's about updating your prediction based on new information without waiting for the final result. This one powerful idea is the engine behind both the SARSA algorithm and the legendary Q-learning algorithm. So here's what you'll learn. You're going to understand exactly how Q-learning works. We'll see the simple update rule that makes it all possible. And you'll discover the one-line change that separates it from SARSA.
But that patience we talked about, it isn't a virtue.
It's a massive, crippling flaw. Imagine you're playing a long game of chess. On move 5, you make a brilliant play, a genius move. But on move 40, you're getting tired. You make a foolish blunder, and you lose the game. Now, here's the problem. The Monte Carlo agent sees only the final outcome: loss. So it goes back and marks every single move it made as part of a losing strategy, including that brilliant one on move 5. It completely fails to give credit where it's due. This delay is a huge drawback. In many problems, episodes can be very long, like a full game of Go, or they might never end at all. Waiting for the end is either too slow or completely impossible. So, can we do better? Can our agent learn from its mistakes as it makes them? Yes, and it's called temporal difference learning. But let's go back to your drive home from work. First, here's the Monte Carlo approach, the patient learner we already know. You predict this trip will take 30 minutes. Then you drive. You hit some unexpected traffic. When you finally arrive, the trip actually took 43 minutes. It's only then, after the journey is complete, that you compare the 30-minute prediction to the 43-minute reality and learn something.
Now check out the TD approach. This is the impatient learner. You start with the same prediction. This trip will take 30 minutes. But just 5 minutes into your drive, you see a huge traffic jam up ahead. At this moment, you make a new prediction. Okay, from here, it's going to be another 35 minutes. So you can immediately learn. You don't have to wait. You can update your initial belief based on the difference between your old guess, which was 30 minutes, and your new, much better guess, which is the 5 minutes you already drove plus the 35 you now expect, a 40-minute total. This is the central idea of TD learning. We use a new, slightly more informed guess to update our old guess. Instead of waiting for the final outcome, we take one step and update our value immediately. What's really cool is that TD learning gives us the best of both worlds. Like Monte Carlo, it learns directly from raw experience, so we don't need a model of the environment. But like dynamic programming, it updates its estimates based on other estimates, a process we call bootstrapping. It's a model-free learner that can learn from every single step of the journey without waiting to see the destination. So what's the secret sauce that makes this work? How do we actually learn a guess from another guess? The answer is so simple, it feels like cheating.
It's this one line of math. Check out this formula. This is the TD0 update rule.
I know this looks complex, but it's the entire secret. We're going to break down every single piece of it right now. First, what are we replacing? Remember the old way, the Monte Carlo update? Look at this formula. The target was G sub t, the actual final score from that point. You had to wait for it. Temporal difference learning performs a brilliant, sneaky substitution. Instead of waiting for the real outcome, G sub t, we create an estimate. Look at this comparison. On the left, the Monte Carlo target is G sub t, the real future reward. You have to wait. But on the right, the TD target is an estimated future reward, and you can calculate it immediately. This is the aha moment. We are replacing a real score with an estimated score. We're updating a guess using another guess. This is called bootstrapping, and it's a revolutionary idea. Let's break down that TD target. Look at the two parts of the expression. First, we have R sub t plus 1. That's the immediate reward, real, concrete information we just got. Then we add our best guess about the future, which is the discounted value of the next state.
So this whole part here, inside the brackets, is the surprise, or what we call the TD error. Check out the full update rule again. It's the difference between our new, better estimate and our old one. The agent uses this error to nudge its old value in the right direction. Now for the best part. The entire conceptual leap boils down to a single line. Let's put the two algorithms side by side. On the left, we have Monte Carlo, the patient learner. You know this one. It generates a full episode, and only then, for each state, does it calculate the real return, G sub t, and update its value. Now, look at TD0, the impatient learner, on the right. It initializes a state, and then for each step, it takes an action, gets a reward and a new state, and it updates its value immediately. That's it. That's the magic trick. We swapped the actual return, G sub t, for an estimated return. This tiny change transforms our agent. Just look at this table. The patient Monte Carlo learner requires complete episodes and has high variance. But TD learning updates every single step. It's fine with never-ending tasks, and it has much more stable one-step updates. This all sounds incredible in theory, but does it actually work? Can you really learn something meaningful just by looking one step ahead? Let's watch this algorithm learn step by step. We're going to see the numbers change with every single move. This all sounds incredible in theory, but does it actually work? Can you really learn something meaningful just by looking one step ahead? Well, let's find out. We're going to trace this algorithm together on a dead simple problem. We're going to watch its brain change after every single experience. No more theory. Let's see the numbers. Okay, here's our problem. A simple line world. You can see the diagram here. We have states A, B, and C, and two terminal states on either end. The rules are pretty easy. The agent always starts in state B. From there, it has a 50% chance of going left and a 50% chance of going right. As for rewards, it's 0 for most steps, but if the agent makes it all the way to that right terminal state, it gets a reward of +1. We'll keep the math simple. You can see the parameters here. Gamma is 1, and our learning rate alpha is a small 0.1. And to start, our agent is completely clueless. Look at its initial brain, its V values. It just guesses that every state, A, B, and C, is worth a neutral 0.5. All right, episode 1 begins. It's a short, unlucky walk. The trajectory you see here is B to A, and then into the terminal state, which gives a reward of 0. Let's look at the first step, B to A. The reward is 0. Now check out the TD error calculation. We're looking at the reward plus the discounted value of the next state minus the value of the current state. So that's 0 plus 1 times 0.5 minus 0.5. The result is 0. There's no surprise, so there's no update. This makes sense, right? The agent thinks A and B are equally good, so nothing changes yet. Okay, now for step 2. The agent moves from A into that terminal state on the left. Remember, terminal states always have a value of 0 by definition. So let's look at the TD error calculation again. The reward is 0, plus the value of the terminal state, which is also 0, minus the agent's old guess for state A, which was 0.5. That gives us a TD error of negative 0.5. Aha, a surprise. The agent was too optimistic about state A. So, time for an update. We take the old value and nudge it by the learning rate times the error. That brings the new value for A down to 0.45. So here's the agent's brain after just one episode. Look at the diagram. V of A is now 0.45. It learned that state A, which leads to a bad outcome, is a little bit worse than it initially thought. Episode 2. This time, a short, lucky walk. The agent goes from B to C and then hits the good terminal state for a reward of +1. The first step, B to C, well, just like before, the TD error is 0. No surprise. Yet. But then, step 2, C moves to the good terminal state. Look at the math. The reward is a big +1, plus the value of the terminal state 0, minus the old value of C, which was 0.5. The TD error is positive 0.5. Another surprise. This time, the agent was too pessimistic. So we update V of C, and it becomes 0.55. Okay, let's check in on the agent's brain now. State A is 0.45, state C is 0.55. So far, so good. But notice something really important. Its opinion of the starting state, B, hasn't changed at all. It's still 0.5. And this brings us to episode 3, the magic trickleback. Watch how the new knowledge about A and C now changes the agent's mind about B. In the middle of the episode, the trajectory is a bit longer this time. You can see it on the slide. Let's focus on that very first step, B to C. Now, when we calculate the TD error, look what happens. We use the new value for C, which is 0.55. So the error is 0 plus 1 times 0.55 minus the old value of B, 0.5. We get a small positive error of 0.05. This is the key moment. We update V of B and it becomes 0.505. It just used its new better guess for C to improve its guess for B. This is bootstrapping. And from here, it's a learning cascade. The new information just keeps propagating. On the next step, C to B, the value of C gets updated. Then from B to A, the value of B gets updated again. And finally, from A to the terminal state, A gets another update. You can see all the numbers here, but the important thing is that every single step is a learning opportunity. So after just 3 episodes, here's where we stand. A is now about 0.4, B is almost 0.5, and C is around 0.55. The values are getting closer to their true values, which for this problem are actually closer to 0.25, 0.5, and 0.75. Do you see what's happening? The information from the final outcomes is slowly trickling back through the states, one step at a time. This ability to learn from every single step is the engine that will drive our more advanced algorithms. But this brings us back to a familiar problem. This is great for predicting how good a state is, but it doesn't tell our agent what to do. For that, we need to move from knowing to doing. And that brings us to a cautious realist called SARSA. Knowing your living room is a great place to be doesn't help you if you don't know which door leads to it. This is the exact problem our agent has. Knowing the value of a state is prediction. But to make decisions, it needs to know the value of an action. We need to move from V of S to Q of S. The fantastic news is we can use the exact same TD learning trick we just learned. We just need to apply it to actions instead of states. And this brings us to our first TD control algorithm. It has a slightly weird name, but the name is its own instruction manual, SARSA. So what's in a name? It sounds a little strange, but it's the 5 pieces of information the agent uses in order. First, you start in a state S. Then you take an action, A. You get a reward, R. You land in a new state, S'. And finally, you choose your next action, A'. State, action, reward. State, action. Look at the diagram. It lays it all out. That's SARSA. So how do we use this? We just tweak our TD0 formula. Remember this one for V values? Now watch closely. We just swap the V's for Q's and get a little more specific. Check out the new formula here. It looks almost identical, but look at the TD target now. We're updating our current action, QSA, based on the reward we got, plus the discounted value of the next action, A prime, that we actually decide to take. That's the key. Okay, here's the full algorithm laid out. Don't get bogged down in the details, but just get a feel for the flow. We initialize everything, loop for each episode, and inside that we loop for each step, taking actions and learning as we go. But this brings us to a really important idea. Let's talk about the cautious realist and why SARSA is called on policy. I want you to pay very close attention to steps 3B and 3C in the algorithm shown here. To update its Q value, SARSA needs to know A prime, the actual action it's going to take next. This is a crucial detail. The Q values SARSA learns are directly tied to the policy it's currently following. This is why SARSA is called an on-policy algorithm. You can think of SARSA as a realist. It learns the value of its actions while accounting for its own imperfect exploratory behavior. For example, it knows there's a small chance its own policy will randomly decide to jump off a cliff because of that epsilon greedy exploration. So what does it learn? It learns that the path right next to the cliff isn't as valuable. It builds that caution right into its value estimates. It learns the best way to behave, given its own cautious, sometimes random nature. But this realism has a downside. It can be overly cautious. What if we don't want to account for our exploration? What if we want our agent to learn the perfect optimal path, no matter what our current bumbling behavior looks like? For that, we need to be a little more optimistic. We need to be a little bolder. And that brings us to the breakthrough.
That realism has a downside. SARSA can be too cautious. So what if we want to learn about the perfect optimal path even while we're still stumbling around exploring? Can we separate exploration from learning? Can our agent behave cautiously but learn greedily? Yes. And it comes from one of the most important breakthroughs in all of reinforcement learning, Q-learning. Q-learning is an off-policy algorithm. Now, this is a critical term. It means the policy it learns about, the optimal one, is different from the policy it uses to act, the exploratory one. And the change required to do this is so small it's almost funny, but its implications are profound. So let's put the two algorithms side by side. I want you to find the difference. There's only one critical change. Here's SARSA, our cautious realist. And now, here's Q-learning, the bold optimist. Take a look at the update steps shown on screen. Did you see it? The entire revolution is in the TD target. Check this out. SARSA's target uses the Q value of A prime, the actual next action its exploratory policy chose. But Q-learning's target? It ignores the next action and finds the Q value of the absolute best one. This is the optimistic update. Q-learning is a bold optimist. When updating, it assumes it will follow the perfect greedy policy forever. It ignores that its own epsilon greedy behavior might choose a worse action next. It learns about the value of perfection even while behaving imperfectly. It's like a student who gets a C on a practice test, but updates their belief about their potential by looking at the answer key for an A+ student. This separation between behavior and learning is a cornerstone of modern reinforcement learning. But it raises the obvious question. Which approach is actually better? The cautious realist, but learns from its own mistakes? Or the bold optimist that learns from a perfect ideal? To find out, we need to put them head to head. We need to see them in action where their philosophies force completely different choices. It's time for a showdown. SARSA versus Q-learning. On policy versus off policy. To really see the difference, we in a world where caution and optimism lead to completely different choices. Welcome to the cliff walking problem. Here's the environment. It's a simple grid. The agent starts at S and has to get to the goal G. You can see there's a safe route up top and a more direct, optimal route right along the edge.
And then there's the cliff. The rules are simple. Every step you take costs a -1 reward. This just encourages the agent to be efficient. But here's the catch. If you step on the cliff, you get a massive -100 penalty, and you're sent right back to the start. So, how do our two agents handle this trade-off? First up, the Q-learning agent, the bold optimist. Now remember, Q-learning is forced to learn about the best possible future, completely ignoring the risks of its own exploration. And look at the policy it learns. It finds the shortest path, walking right along the edge. It's optimal, but it's also suicidal. An agent following this with epsilon-greedy exploration will constantly fall off the cliff. It suffers immensely during the learning process.
Now, let's look at SARSA, the cautious realist. SARSA learns from what actually happens. And what actually happens is that sometimes its exploration takes a random step down, right into that -100 penalty. That massive negative reward gets fed back into its Q values. So what does SARSA learn? Check out its policy. It learns that the cliff is not worth the risk and takes the longer, safer path. It's suboptimal, but it's much more effective during the actual learning process. This is the entire on-policy versus off-policy debate, right here in 2 pictures. So here's the big takeaway. They're answering 2 different questions. Q-learning, which is off-policy, answers, what is the best path, assuming I execute it perfectly? It learns the optimal policy, but the learning can be unstable. SARSA, which is on-policy, answers, what is the best path for me, a clumsy agent still exploring? It learns a safer policy that accounts for its own imperfections. So you see, neither one is strictly better. They are 2 different tools for 2 different jobs. And this distinction is crucial to mastering reinforcement learning. Okay, so we've moved from the patient Monte Carlo to agile TD learning. We have 2 powerful algorithms that can learn and act in the world without a map. But both of these methods share one tiny, myopic flaw. They only look one single step into the future. So, where do we go from here? What's the next level?
This leap from Monte Carlo to temporal-difference learning. It's one of the biggest ideas in this entire field. You've just understood the engine behind modern RL. So, what did we actually learn? Let's recap. Dumb simple. First, TD learning is impatient. It learns from every single step, updating its guess along the way. This is called bootstrapping. Second, SARSA is cautious. It's an on-policy learner that finds the safest path because it has to account for its own mistakes. And third, Q-learning is bold. It's an off-policy learner that completely ignores its own bumbling exploration to find the optimal path. But this leaves us at a fascinating crossroads. We've now seen 2 extremes for learning from experience. Look at this table. On one end, you have Monte Carlo. It waits for the true final outcome. This gives it an unbiased signal. It's the real score after all. But it also means it has high variance. It's very noisy. Then you have one-step TD learning. It learns from a one-step estimate. This gives it very low variance, so it's incredibly stable. But its signal is biased because that initial estimate can be totally wrong. So we have a classic trade-off, an accurate but noisy signal versus a stable but potentially wrong one. But must we choose? Or can we get the best of both worlds? What if we could look 2 steps ahead, or 5, or 50? What if we could create a slider to perfectly tune the balance? That's not a hypothetical question. That's exactly what we're going to do in the next video with n-step learning. We'll be creating a unified algorithm that can act like Monte Carlo, like TD, or anywhere in between. So make sure you're subscribed for that. You won't want to miss it.